I'm joined in the studio by Charlotte Leslie, who's prospective Tory MP for Bristol North West and local campaigner against the sale of Daisy Field by the A4 Portway. And I think we've covered a couple of your issues and indeed your title as well. So welcome to the programme, Charlotte.
Thanks very much, Steve.
With a handful of newspapers as well. Good to have you on the programme and having a glance across the press and lots of sort of things to get your teeth into as well. I thought you might start with Gordon Brown's letter, actually. I thought you might have a view or two on that one.
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There's always that question to what extent the newspapers are just selling their own story and exploiting other people's grief. But on this one, I have to say, I think I have a bit of sympathy for the Sun in revealing it, particularly the telephone call that we found out about today. On top of Gordon Brown looking a bit careless, writing the letter to Mrs. Janes, it seems that he was slightly dismissive of her accusation of there not being enough equipment for the troops. And you do think, well, if anyone knows about this, it's going to be the mother of someone who's actually out there. So I have a bit of sympathy for the Sun. They're probably egging it up a bit too much. And
I don't think the Sun needs sympathy, really, do they?
Well,
come on, Charlotte. You know, they know what they're doing, and they know what sells newspapers as well. Of course, there are underlying issues in all this. But what about the letter itself? And without making political points about it, because but for the grace of God, go many people.
Absolutely,
I suppose.
My writing's appalling as well.
Exactly, and you write something maybe with the best, and I'm sure you will agree. Gordon Brown's intentions were honourable, even if perhaps mistakes were made and all that. You know,
I'm sure they were honourable. I think the question isn't it? Is how much time did he take over it?
Yeah.
And Peter Mandelson last night said it's unthinkable that Gordon Brown would wish to be disrespectful, and I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure he didn't want to be disrespectful. But in my books, if you're writing a letter that sensitive and that meaningful to someone, you do just take a bit of time, and if it's not quite right, you just do it again. Would it
have been better just to have an officially, properly typed, printed letter signed at the bottom by Gordon Brown, the way things used to be done? I mean, would that, get us round these sorts of things? Because it's like a doctor's letter, isn't it? You can't read a thing on it, So maybe maybe just better to have the thing properly written, properly thought out, and then signed.
Well, I bet poor old Gordon is now wishing he'd done that. I'm sure for him it's a shame. It was meant as a nice
wonderful
gesture.
thing, isn't it?
Lovely thing. Maybe the next one will be tight.
But unfortunately, it couldn't be at a more sensitive time, and obviously at a shocking time for any parent to get that kind of news.
But it is, and it's also surprising that his office didn't pick it up. I mean, I'm sure Gordon Brown has a lot to do, and if his handwriting's bad and he was rushing, fair enough. But you'd think that someone in his office would have said, "Come on, Gordon, let's redo that one."
Yeah, just the whole thing wasn't good enough, was it? X Factor?
Oh, X Factor! I was
no, you've brought it up, not me.
Devastated to see Lucy Jones voted off.
Yeah.
Actually, perhaps a little-known fact that Lucy Jones is related to Vaughan Jones, the ex-Bristol Rovers captain.
You are joking?
No, it's actually true.
In which case we could have claimed Lucy the whole way through.
We could have claimed Lucy. Yeah. I found this out at Southmead Karaoke Contest a couple of weeks ago when I was being a celebrity judge with Vaughan, and he just dropped it into the conversation.
Hang on. You were a celebrity judge at the Southmead Karaoke competition?
That's right. There was a karaoke competition about 2 weeks ago in Southmead to raise money for the Southmead Pride Carol Bus Appeal.
Right.
Which supports local community projects in Southmead. And I was judging with Glenn Catley, the former world champion boxer, who also has a bit of a voice on him, which is a surprising...
So he was taking part as well, was he?
He did at the end.
Which is not bad if you're a judge. It's not as bad as Simon Cowell,
and he may have upset the competition because he sung very, very well.
Yeah.
And Vaughan Jones, halfway through, just mentioned that Lucy was, I think it's his niece.
You see, I've got a theory, which I mentioned earlier on in the show, way early on, that I think it's done her the power of good to be knocked out of that competition, because when she started, she was such a lovely, fresh, lovely performer. They've just turned her into, over 3 or 4 weeks, into the typical Cheryl Cole type rock chick, identikit like everybody. She can go off now and just be herself again. And I think in retrospect, when she looks back on us, it's best to be knocked out of that.
It's funny to watch them change, isn't it? They all turn into these clones, and I think she's
deep American accents when they sing and
That's
everything.
right.
Isn't that annoying? Isn't it annoying? It's not only an American accent, it's a regional American accent.
Keep it British.
Yeah, well, just sing in your ordinary voice.
Someone's going to pick her up, though, aren't they?
Of course
she's not going anywhere.
She's talented and lovely.
She'll be back.
She will do well. But are you worried about, Ofcom or whatever being brought into the whole thing? That with question marks over Simon Cowell and the way the competition is run, or do you think it's just yet more hype and yet more publicity?
Well, the trouble is we've seen it before, haven't we, with the naming of Blue Peter pets and things like that, and people are trusting media less and less. Yeah. Obviously not Radio Bristol, but
people are spending a lot of money phoning in on these competitions, aren't they?
They are.
It's got to be scrupulously correct, doesn't it?
And people are getting more savvy. I think they're more savvy to knowing when they're being exploited.
Yeah.
And but the interesting thing about that story was, which is much less reported, that it was the public vote that actually gave Lucy the fewer votes. So although it's Simon Cowell who's taking all the flack, the interesting thing is that obviously some of the public voted Jedward.
Yeah, but I think the flack comes because he had the casting vote, and he'd said all along that he'd leave the country if these guys won the competition, yet in the end he gives his casting vote to them. I think
do we expect anything different from Simon Cowell?
Not at all. He's doing what's going to make that
TV.
programme work. That's television, folks. Show business. It's a hard old life. What about these middle-class shoplifters then?
Well, this is an extraordinary story. It's a story that there's a huge rise in so-called middle-class shoplifters who are not taking sort of the usual items, but they're stealing, and the paper lists luxury meat items and champagne. So you've got this vision of hyacinth bouquet scuttling around Waitrose, shoving the oak smoked salmon under her.
A better class of nicker, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. I thought
that's somebody who nicks, not, you know what I mean. There we go. Yeah. And was this because of the recession or something? Or
it's because of the recession. The theory is that people don't want to show that they're suffering, and they don't want to let the side down. So at all these nice dinner parties, there's going to be hot oak smoked salmon in more ways than one.
Yeah, I bet they all come from Portishead, do they?
I'm sure they do, yes.
They've got nice supermarkets, good supermarkets
lovely
in Portishead, haven't they?
Portishead, in the shed, as we call it.
In the shed, which I fondly know it as. Just give us a very quick line on this: prisoners rioting over porridge for breakfast, Charlotte. I like the look of this one.
Well, again, this is one of those stories you think, it could only happen in Britain. Apparently, prisoners are complaining because there's nothing but porridge for breakfast, and they're demanding a continental option and a hot English option, and
smoked salmon maybe.
Smoked salmon.
I know somebody that could supply it.
Pinch from a local middle class person hit hard times.
Yeah, get it sent in a cake. I don't know.
Smuggling in visits. Yeah.
So they're still getting porridge in prison. That sounds like a cliche, doesn't it?
I had porridge this morning, and I'm not in prison. I kind of like porridge myself. Yeah.
What's so funny is that porridge is now billed as a new superfood. So it's what all the middle classes and the savvy are now eating, and prisoners are turning their noses up at it.
They're all going for it. There
it's
we
all
are.
Gone mad.
Porridge, the new porridge. It's the new brand flakes. Charlotte, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Steve.
Lovely for coming in. That's Charlotte Leslie. And coming up after 9, Graham.